welcome to another episode of Feminine Scope. I am Amanda Ezekwe. Feminine Scope is a program where we discuss issues bordering around women, their challenges and triumphs, covering different spheres of their lives. Nigerian women have come a long way from the pre-colonial era to the colonial and then to the contemporary era. Some of these stories and information were not captured because of lack of communication and no proper documentation. Some of what these women did has not been portrayed or even promoted. The role of women cannot be overemphasized. We'll be looking into the narratives surrounding Nigerian women in their journey towards political, social, and economic empowerment, and the influence of media and communication in aiding women to achieve empowerment in all spheres of their lives through great memories and projected visions of the future. To have this in-depth discuss with me is a journalist, a public affairs analyst with postgraduate degrees in peace and conflict studies, leadership and strategic studies. She was the woman editor of Nigerian Union of Journalists, the Defender magazine, the publication of the National Secretariat. Please join us after the break. Welcome back. Women have played and continued playing major roles in nation building from the pre-colonial era, Queen Amina of Zaria and Queen Idia of Benin, who played major roles in their respective kingdoms. The colonial era, Fumilayo Ransom Kuti, Janet Mokelo, Margaret Ekpo, who fought for the rights of women, and in the post-colonial era, Franca Afebwa, first female to be elected in the Senate in 1983, and Miriam Babangida, who used her pet project, Better Life for Rural Women, to empower a lot of women. Seeing all that some of these women have achieved, can we confidently say same for the present-day Nigerian woman? To discuss this with me is Onido Hadiza, a journalist, a public affairs analyst with postgraduate degrees in peace and conflict studies, leadership and strategic studies. She was the woman editor of NUJ, the Defender magazine, the publication of the National Secretariat. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much for having me.
Nice to have you after our discussions.
Thank you.
Now we're talking about women in the society. Can you say that Nigeria has been fair to women?
Honestly, Nigeria has not been fair to women. And when you look at it or at the face value and you're not searching deeply into the issues, it will seem like we're hysterical, like they try to say we're emotional and we just want to make noise and draw attention to ourselves. So we will be looking at statistics and looking at hierarchical value systems that is inherently problematic, that promotes value dualism, that segregates women, puts them in a kind of biological definition and social construction that only allows them to function, first of all, within the construct of society and mere biology. But then, there is more to a woman than that. So, to the question if women have been treated fairly in Nigeria, I say no. Nigerians look at women, is it as a sister, then a sister's responsibility, a wife's role, or a mother's calling, and never as an individual that deserves to express herself or own her own place. And this is at best what we are getting these days.
Now, we talked about women being Nigerian and not being treated fairly.
Yes.
Let's look at the pre-colonial era.
Oh.
We saw the likes of Queen Amina.
Yes.
We saw the likes of Queen Idia in Benin. These are women who fought strongly to protect their kingdoms. Are women being allowed to express themselves
Absolutely.
Looks like they have been underestimated.
Definitely, this is the issue. What has happened to the Nigerian woman is what I call historical atavism, where we started off from a very strong place, a place of confidence and a place of self-expression. And I mean, I can't express this enough. Self-actualization, then to have this as our situation now. But if you look at historical mention of the role they play today, it is just casual and relegated to the background. And to think that we fought for independence, but we had to reach 1995 in Beijing for the affirmation plan to be declared that carried us along. It is so unsatisfactory, and I am wondering, where did women go wrong? What happened? Where is this reversal in role and presence coming from? Presently, think of the statistics. In the National Assembly, for example, the representation is 6.5%. Parliamentary, very low, abysmally low, quite uncomfortable. And we have women as 49.36% of the population of this country. So we are talking about a system where laws will be made for women, bills will be passed by others that do not even know where our issues lie or what we are trying to express or what our needs are at best. Then you look at places like even Mr. President's promise, which was one of the driving agendas of his campaign.
35%
yes,
of the nation.
Yes. He talked about political inclusion along economic empowerment and all of the other agendas he rolled out. Women rose up and rallied around him. Today, what do we have? In his ministerial cabinet, we are having 7 women as ministers of 43 ministers he has.
Mentioning the senators,
yes,
109 male senators against 9 women.
It is a sorry state. Not because the women must become feminist or must drag with men or seek equality, but because it is only rational that half of the percentage of your population should be included on the basis of competence, of course, not on the basis of we are weaker and we deserve a spot. No, there are competent women there, like Dora Akunyili of blessed memory. She proved herself in contemporary times that a woman can do it, that we still have what we used to have that we wielded pre-colonially in us at this contemporary time.
Would you say that the pre-colonial era affected us post-colonial and
yes,
contemporary?
Yes, yes.
How?
Because the African woman who was not educated in the Western classroom was from Aba and knew her rights to the extent of coming out to say no to a repressive tax system. They knew it was draconian, that it was unfair, and they were not taught by any foreign ideology to pursue this. They were later inspired by the Apanya women in Igala land, and they rose up against injustice, knowing that this is not fair, this is not what they want for themselves. At the same time, their contemporaries were fighting for the right to vote. There wasn't sharing of information as we have today, but there was the instinctive awareness that this is not right, and we wanted something different. So I think, much against what we like to think, that the Western education have empowered women, in Nigeria, it have kind of retrogressed us, retrogressed our confidence and retrogressed our self-expression. This is not who the Nigerian woman was those days. We had them in pristine roles, like being priestesses, like being queen mothers, like the Queen Hadiza you mentioned of Benin. The first Yaoba of the Benin Kingdom was a woman, a well-known war strategist, whose incisive cautions and advice led to the victory of a prince of Edo during the tussle that led to a civil strife in Edo Kingdom in as early as 15th centuries. So whatever colonialism has done for us, it hasn't empowered the Nigerian women more. This is a peculiar experience where we are noticing a reversal in confidence and expression and representation, unlike before colonialism.
Still talking politics, Rwanda came out from the war and is seen as one of the top African countries with 61.25% of women being in politics. Would you say that this has helped their country, or this, or having more women as cabinet members, appointive positions,
in fact,
you know, rose the country to what it is now?
In fact, like they say, necessity is the mother of invention. The genocide took away so much men that the country had no choice than to look towards women to rebuild the nation to where it is today. And we have seen what women were able to do in Rwanda. The success Rwanda is recording today cannot be divorced from the fact that the kind of gender representation they are having is playing a key role. You know how women are. Their tendency to be careful, the tendency to always look inside, to be intuitive,
to nurture,
nurture is what is playing out in Rwanda. A whole lot is different there today. Some European cities are not as functional as Rwanda is. This is tribute to what women can do.
In Nigeria, still talking politics, we had the first female governor, Dame Beji Etiaba. She was not elected, but she had to step in when her boss was impeached. And the closest we've ever had as a governor is a deputy governor. And it wasn't like she was elected, but she has to support the governor. When do you think Nigeria will ever have her first female governor? Is that possible?
I think more and more we are moving away from that possibility, painfully. Because look at the lineup of the people juggling for office today. Unless there's a paradigm shift in the arrangement of our politics, women will still be excluded. We're talking about a politics that is brazen, that is ridden with violence, and you know, need so much money to finance you, to get you out there. And you see, there's something happening where political parties are giving free forms and giving incentives to women. It is not about the form. It is about the political space, the sanity of it, and what it takes for a woman to participate. So we're still far away from the dream of having women being represented, because our political space is rowdy and violent and not fit for a woman.
But when it comes to campaign, they get the women are the ones who rally around getting people to vote. So what happened?
Definitely. They rally the women come out, vote, campaign, and do all sorts to ensure that a candidate of choice emerges. And if we are being sincere, as troublesome as the political space is now, the electioneering process in particular, there's something that can be done. A woman, a candidate, can decide to fill his cabinet with women in non-elective positions. This is a way to go about it. At the state level, you can have your commissioners, you can do the 35%, implement it even, yes, at that level. Then you have it at the higher level also, where you have more women in ministerial positions and let's see, as your directors or as your permanent secretaries, by way of seeking to balance before the space is sane enough for the kind of participation we seek.
Do you even think women know their rights?
At this point, I think we may have even forgotten what our rights are. We are at best just waiting for the election periods so the rappers come out and dance and sing the songs and take the pictures, and we just go back home. It is not helping the cause at all.
Now let's go to the workplace. How do we address the wage gap? Because you find some women, okay, like in a workplace, a man and a woman doing the same job description, but the man's salary is higher than the woman's own. So
I tell you, as bad as things look around here, it is funny that in some Western countries it is so bad. For example, as advanced as Australia is, you find a whopping 17.5% disparity in wages sometimes between men and women. So for Nigeria, I think wage-wise, we're still quite sane, and we must give kudos where it is due. The disparity is not so
bad.
Yes, I think, especially in our civil service, I don't think there's gender disparity in wages, and most of the private organizations that I know of, the wages are at par with men.
Now aside the wages in the workplace, they are not childcare friendly.
Oh, definitely.
And it's a major concern for nursing mothers. A nursing mother feels very uncomfortable leaving her child home after her 3 months maternity leave. And most of them end up taking an extra month without pay. How can this be addressed?
Actually, there was a time I was concerned about this, and I asked an employer, why are workplaces not baby friendly? Why don't we have these zones that babies can be cared for, especially with the rise in children abuse, youngsters being left in the care of caregivers, and their mothers noticing bruises, injuries, and sometimes torture of these children.
Yeah.
So the employer was telling me that, you see, this is partly the fault of the Nigerian woman also. Maybe it is not justified. But what he was saying is that in places it happens that people have 1, 2 children, that you do that for a Nigerian woman, and she will be taking annually 3 months off you and have 9 babies. That, how is someone supposed to cope with this as an employer? So, but besides the funny part of it, I think this is an issue that needs to be addressed.
Sure.
Yeah, and especially for government offices, I see them rising to the occasion these days, where you have small nurseries and baby-friendly zones that mothers can bond with their children for that, especially those nursing, lactating periods. Things are improving in that aspect, much more than it was before 10 years, 20 years back.
Because some women go as far as leaving their jobs just to care for the child.
Yes.
And by the time the children have been weaned enough, getting another job is a problem. So
Sure.
how can you tell or advise that this should be taken very seriously?
You see, an investment in children can never go wrong. And these are the formative ages of children, from that month 0 to the first 6 months. And if the mother is not given the opportunity to properly care for her child, this is going to be a later problem for the kind of population we will have, because these critical stages ensure what the child will become later. So the many agitations we are having should consciously include this, and we need to partner with relevant agencies to ask that this be provided, that a nursing mother be protected from the loss of her job just because of her child. It is absolutely unfair and should not be condoned anywhere.
We've been talking about a lot of things. Now, another thing about women where it's not been fair to women is bailing in the police station. Women are not allowed to bail people. Why?
Some of these things really get to you. Like recently, it was during this 35 new vigor to get our 35% that I was hearing that as a Nigerian woman with a foreign husband, your husband cannot share your citizenship.
At all.
And, oh my God, how about the one where the man cannot be charged to have raped his wife? The law doesn't recognize the rape. Oh God, a man raping his wife. He's at best said to have assaulted her indecently, which attracts far less punishment. I don't know.
They tell you it's a family matter.
They tell you it's a family matter, even when the sex is forced, even when there's evidence of violence. Permit me to admit this. I am hearing this one of bail for the first time. It is really funny and exposing the fact that, you know, I started off not believing in the fact that there is a fight, that there's something that we need to speak out for or speak up against, until recently when all of these issues started coming out. Thank you for this enlightenment. I am hearing about the bail issue for the first time, and
we take it up from here.
Yes, definitely.
Now, something else, uneven access to education too. Women, although they are getting more enlightened now, there are some parts of Nigeria where women aren't really allowed access to education. They feel, oh, they should just go to a man's house or be relegated in the kitchen.
Yes. This is a very, 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 very unfortunate thing. But I can tell you, there have been tremendous improvements in girl-child education, and from the pattern of enrollment, it can be seen. One of the places that had those issues really in really high percentages was in the northern Nigeria. Before the insurgency and terrorism, we saw high enrollment of female children into schools, and it was such an incredible improvement to see. But again, the security challenges came up, and the attacks focused particularly on schools and girls' schools. So this has really been a setback and deserves to be addressed. But before this setback we are talking about, education had made a case for itself, because the mothers sometimes were so afraid of poverty that they pushed their children out there to get married and secure a future for themselves. But for those that pulled it through and gave the children some form of education, they saw it come back in better folds. They got married to better men, they had a better life, and they were able to help their families, as against the fear that they will become a burden if they are left to stay longer at home.
I remember in the early 90s when the late Miriam Babangida started the rural women, Better Life for Rural Women. We saw what she did with these women. Presently, can you say women are being empowered with skills?
The thing is, this fits into the larger narrative of how bad things have become. The word empowerment have become so abused, where if you just want to get people to do something, you just bring up this idea that you are empowering them. What is even empowerment? At this point, what is empowerment? There is nothing more empowering than educating a person's mind. And if you are not doing that and empowering the person to face a future where they can care for themselves, you are wasting your time. They bring skill acquisition has its place, but how much has it reached home? Because a lot of people, you will see budgets of 150,000 sewing machines for rural women, cooking stoves for rural women. How can stove, okay, the sewing machine is even better. How can cooking stove be a form of empowerment for women? How? And in most cases, it doesn't even reach home. For this 150,000 that was budgeted for, you will find out that at times, 5,000 or 10,000 of it reaches people.
So what happens to the remaining ones?
I don't know. There are so many people involved in the process that you have the place where the policy is generated from, the people that handle, that do the purchase, the people it is given to distribute. Something happens along the line. I don't know what is it, but you end up seeing that for all the drummed up empowerment that people are talking about, it reaches just a few. And empowerment must be reviewed to go side by side with education. Yes, an educated person should have some form of skill. This is a good way to go. But you cannot use empowerment to scam people where that is the only thing you're giving. What if the machine gets burnt? What if something happens? But if you educate the person, even if the certificate gets burnt, the person can apply for another one. If you give the person real skills, the skills last forever. But this kind of empowerments that have to do with purchasing things and giving it to people, I don't think it is working. And I don't think it is the way to go.
From the slave queens to the woke generation, do you think that they are fit enough to rule this nation as women?
Thank you. This is where the fear really lies. You see, the other time we're talking about hierarchical value system and the value dualism. This value dualism is used to segregate people in order to have them in separate boxes where you can have different things applied to them. It has so happened to a Nigerian female that what she sees now as self-expression is to slay. But before now, a Nigerian woman was slaying with books and inventions and self-expression and
You're short of words.
Yes. We need to go back to the drawing table. Like the Spartans will say, it is only Spartan women that give birth to Spartans. The quality of people we had before were given birth to by women of substance. Parents should sit tight right now for the sake of the future and for the sake of this space we call our own, and raise the kind of women that can hold their own. These slave queens and what other generation did you call them? The woke generation. I don't see what this is going to turn out to be, but I hope there's a pleasant surprise in the box waiting for us.
If you're just joining us, this is Feminine Scope, and we have been discussing the role of women in the present-day Nigeria. Has the society been fair to women? We'll be going on a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue this discussion and many more. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Feminism. Do Nigerian women have a case?
Thank you.
Because men feel threatened. Probably they don't understand what it's all about. So help us explain to them.
Like seriously, the Nigerian woman, I will say again, is witnessing a reversal of history. Before now, there would have been no room for this because our place was assured and we didn't feel like we had to fight for it. We had value systems that dealt with issues. Even before feminism, no society allowed a man to brutalize a woman.
True.
There were checks and balances to ensure that you treated your wife right. So our values were different. So what we had as our issues confronting us at that time was not what the idea of feminism was there to cater for. Like, feminism was just saying, enough, stand up, say no to things that are anti-women, that are not suitable for the women. So it is the antecedents of later that is forcing the Nigerian woman now to think that, okay, should we lend our voice to other counterparts so that we can be heard? But we started from a society where, as a woman, you could go out to protest even against powers that intimidated the Nigerian men. Colonial powers, draconian tax systems. And we held our own, and it inspired what led to colonial struggles and the participation of women. But today, we are witnessing a situation of repression where it is inherent in structures to stop you. Why is it that the role of women in Nigeria's independence is so muted? It is so hushed that it is when we talk about Funmilayo Ransom Kuti that we remember. It is when we talk about things like this that the Aba Women riot, the Aba Women riot, the Aba Women riot. It is so captured in history that we do not even say that it was against a tax system.
History has been taken out from
the context, system. Yes.
So it's not been documented.
Yes.
Because the generation coming up now,
yes,
never heard of it.
Yes.
Until you tell them.
Yes.
But and growing up, history was taught in school.
Yes.
And that was how we
yes, knew. As expunged as history is presently, children growing up knows about the role of Sir Ahmadu Bello, Awolowo, and Nnamdi Azikiwe, all of blessed memory. Why don't they know about the role of women?
Margaret Echo,
yes, Margaret Echo,
Mokelu,
yes.
Funmilayo Ransom Kuti, which was very prominent.
Which was very prominent. She traveled as part of the delegation of her political party to Britain to discuss our independence.
And insisted that women be allowed to vote.
Women be allowed to vote. And this happened. So we have a case, but our case may not be the Western case. Because when they were fighting for the right to vote, we didn't have that problem. We had a system and a value system that allowed for self-expression, where you have the Yaolojas, which was a very powerful...
still very powerful.
Yes.
The Western...
Yes, in the Western part of the country. A very powerful role to have. And in the Benin Kingdom, we have the role of the Queen Mothers and how revered they are. So our problems are different. They were fighting for the right to vote as suffragettes in the first wave of feminism. So
even in the East, the Umadas, they are a solid
group and forced to reckon with.
That was where the men were summoned. If you beat up your wife, they come to your house.
Thank you.
And you pay certain fines before you're even released.
Believe me, at that period in the West, there was no such system to question you that was so close to the grassroots when you malhandle your wife. So we had an effective cultural and value system that tended to these issues. What later happened is what is giving room and roots to feminism in our discourses. The second wave is now talking about sexual freedom, talking about the right over the woman's body, rights to contraceptives and abortions and things like that. So if you're really looking at it step by step, unless now that it is evolving and involving several other things, we had no place with, we had no business with feminism. So what we are calling feminism in Nigeria now is as a result of how the society is treating the women. The issue of representation is not something we need to go far to understand now. Yes. So now, where are the systems that calls you to order when you maltreat your wife? Before feminism was an issue, my grandma, my great-grandma of blessed memory, Hajia Salma, if you beat, my uncles raised their hands on their wives. I grew up to meet her. She told me that I should ask them. She will be the one to call police on you.
As far back as
40, 50 years ago. She is unlettered, so she didn't know anything about feminism. She is a woman, the first woman to have a car in her society then in Kogi State. It was not a problem for anybody. Her husband supported her trade. So Nigerian women were not traditionally oppressed and in shackles. So it is a new system that is causing the need for feminist ideologies and for a need to imbibe in their arguments of what feminism is thrusting right now. But be that as it may, the average Nigerian woman doesn't want to be that kind of Western feminist. She doesn't want the sexual freedom to have it with whosoever she wants, when she wants and how she wants it.
We still have our culture.
Yes, we still have our culture. So I think we have a case in the larger context of feminism, but not the Western case of feminism, because our historical antecedents are different and our needs are different and our problems are totally different.
We've seen of recent, women are beginning to get aware of the power they have in terms of domestic violence, domestic abuse. More women are speaking up after the last incident that happened.
Very, very unfortunate.
But still, most of them are still scared to stand up and, go to report and all that. What would you say is the cause of all this?
I think much as reversing back into history may be a problem, this is one point that we need to think of the value systems that we used to have and retool it to fit into our current realities. If it is a sort of ombudsman that resonates with what we used to have, that question you for maltreating your wife, that is close to home and close to the grassroots that we need to have, the time to have it is rife. Because domestic abuse, for as much as you hear of it in social media and in the contemporary media and in all sorts of spaces, it is much more than you can imagine. The domestic abuse we all are used to is when a man is hitting you or being violent to you. But there's a psychological abuse, which unfortunately breeds a place for children that is not healthy to grow in. It becomes a very bad cycle where the children imbibe what they have seen and go to create that same system in the homes they shall have tomorrow. So we are getting it really wrong to think that an intimidated and battered person should just get up and have the ability to come out. If they know they are being abused, and if they have that power, the abuse will stop. I think we're witnessing a case where we need to step in as a society to create structures that allows for people to step in. Not this individualistic pursuance of your well-being where abuse is taking place. The system needs to retool our old system and have a process that allows communities or societies to step in and say stop.
Will you say that social media have helped women or not?
Believe me, when it comes to the discussion of social media, it is always in the middle. It has the good side of it, and it has the bad side of it. As close as it is to home, very few cases of abuse is heard through there. Most times we hear of it when it is total and fatal, when help cannot even reach the victim anymore. It is in time of death or serious bodily harm that people cannot recover from that we hear of domestic abuses. So even for social media, we have to retool it and create apps, yes, in a positive way where people can use it to ask for help. But the psychological thing underpinning that keeps the person in place, that causes the person to endure abuse, is what we should be fighting. Not even the means to get it out there. Because by the time the person gets to a point of reaching out for help, The person, yes, it's late. And sometimes the person can even walk away. But it is in those periods where the person is enduring it that we need help to reach the person. And social media is only good here to raise the campaigns and improve the confidence level of the victim so that they can speak out. But as a tool to reduce it, I don't see it playing a more proactive role than sensitization.
Have Nigerian mothers been raising their daughters well?
I think not. This is one case a lot of mothers are guilty of. The home environment tends to encourage abuse. Like spare the rod
and spoil the child.
We have to seek for a delicate balance where the rod, when it lands on the child, is passing the right message that you have done wrong, and this is as a last resort, and I am not supposed to use this on you, and it should not be a system where you constantly abuse the child, beat up the child. I saw a mother last time. She felt so bad about it. She lost her composure with her child. The child, by the way, did something very terrible. She beat up this child so much that she tore the bra from this child and tore the pant from this child and was at the verge of dragging the child out until she controlled herself. She wept later. She was very remorseful later. And she talked to me about it. I encouraged her to discuss this with the child and make the child understand that she was wrong and this is not a standard. We should learn how to handle our children so that there is no place for them where they think an abuse is okay. We cannot have separate boxes for these issues. You can't continuously abuse a child and tell the child that this is for your own good and think that the child will go into a marriage and somebody is abusing her and she doesn't think that, oh, it is for my own good, I have done something wrong, I am deserving of bad treatment.
That's sowing seed for domestic violence.
Yes, it is making a room for it. And I think there may be a direct link between why women endure these abuses and the experiences they have had before of violence unleashed on them by their parents. We are Africans. The rod is allowed to a measurable and reasonable extent, but it should be communicated properly and be used wisely so that we don't set a standard that makes it okay to endure abuses later in life.
What is the role of the Nigerian woman in the society?
It has been such a pleasure talking about this. And I think there is no greater role than motherhood. Responsible motherhood, a motherhood that allows you to nurture and create a better generation. And more, we are noticing absenteeism in parenthood, particularly motherhood. It can be understood for economic reasons and for all sorts of reasons to go out there. But dear Nigerian women, if we need this society to be okay, I am going to call out to you that you raise your children properly, because the tool we equip them with tomorrow is what will make them strong enough to ask for their rights in a responsible way, and it is what will make them good men tomorrow, for us raising the sons that will treat women better. For all that we have said about inequality and repressions and unfair practices, most times we push the blame to the men. I want us to know that we were the ones that raised those men, and we should tighten our belts and do much more than we are doing to nurture our children, to impact the right values, and to do the best we can to ensure that the future is better than what we are complaining about today.
We sincerely appreciate you for taking our time to be with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Our guest has been Onido Hadiza, a journalist, a public affairs analyst with postgraduate degrees in peace and conflict studies, leadership and strategic studies. She was the woman editor of National Union of Journalists, The Defender magazine, the publication of the National Secretariat. Finally, in politics, women were not as docile or powerless as they are being portrayed. The basic unit of the political organization was the family, and in the common matrifocal arrangement, which allowed a woman to gain considerable authority over her children. Power and privileges in a household were also based on age and gender, thereby allowing the older women to have a voice on many issues. Because the public and private arenas were intertwined, a woman's ability to control resources and people in a household was at the same time an exercise in public power. She could use food production to gain respect. She could control her children and influence men through this power. All we're saying is give more women a chance to make impact in our society and country as a whole. That's the much we can take on the program. Until next week, bye-bye.